The Scotsman, James Heatley, with a forward 2.5 somersault.
Oh, what a thrill for James to be opening up this competition in his home pool for Team Scotland. Obviously, his nerves were going to be jangling, but that's a solid start for this young boy. Only 17 years old. Lots of just rolling over into. Knew that he was going to be opening up the competition, wanted to start steadily. 7's is a good score.
For James Heatley. Now on to the Malaysian, Ahmed Azan, who's going to go for a forward 2.5 somersaults, 1 twist worth 3.2 on degree of difficulty.
Oh, you can see why the 1 metre is so challenging, because he's just managed to fit in 2.5 somersaults and come out in the middle of the 2.5 somersaults and wrap a twist. Check this out. Here we go, forward 2.5. So here's 1 somersault out, 1 twist back in, and he makes it look so easy. A little bit scruffy with his feet there.
The ones in the middle without the lines through them. 7, 7.5, 7.5 multiplied by that degree of difficulty gives you his total mark of 70.40. Right, Riley McCormick, who did the 10 metre in London, doing the 1 metre here, forward 2.5 somersaults.
Yeah, it's a solid start from Riley. Yeah, normally up on the 10 metre, had his fair share of injuries, and of course, you know, getting on a bit now in diving years, been around for quite some time. Competed back in the World Championships in 2007 in Melbourne as a 17-year-old, and has been rocking it ever since.
Dives, 58.50 for his opening dive. Chris Mears going with an inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck, 3.1 degree of difficulty. Best mark so far from Ahmed Azman of Malaysia, 70.40. This will be looking to get to 8s from this dive to go into the lead.
Oh, he just rolls over a vertical as he enters the water there. It's a big degree of difficulty, 3.1, so inward, standing backwards, spinning forwards towards the diving board. You can see there, really, really strong. Beautiful pike out, just tipping his chin slice to get into that final.
Yeah, a couple of 7.5s, so there's 7 to add towards that total of 68.20. Our 1 Indian diver in this competition, Amananda Kombrelapan, will go with the forward 2.5 somersaults. And again, it's, as we saw from James Heatley, worth 2.6 for his opening dive.
Yeah, he almost saved the dive there, attacking the hurdle step as he goes in, just shifting his body weight forward just a touch too much. You can see there, dipping over the end of the diving board, 1 foot over the end of the board. He manages to keep control and just about saves the dive from going.
Exactly the same mark as James Heatley got for that dive. 3 7s and a total of 54.60. Hopefully you're with us now on how the marking and scoring works. Here's Freddie Woodward going up 6th. And also going for that forward 2.5 somersaults with pike, 2.6 degree of difficulty. Here comes the 19-year-old.
Oh, well done, Freddie. Great opening dive. First Commonwealth Games. Just breaking through into the senior ranks, as I mentioned in the build-up. Won the national championships on this board. However, Jack and Chris were not competing because they were away at the World Series in Mexico. See how they're feeling this morning?
Well, not feeling that generous yet. Yeah, 7.5 is the best you're going to get. 58.50 is the mark, but the best of the executions of that dive that we've seen so far. New Zealand dive, we don't say that too often, but Liam Stone is here to do a job. His opening dive is a 3.1 inwards 2.5 somersaults, one of the youngest competitors here at 17 years of age.
Yeah, it's a big dive to open up with. Needs composure and confidence. 3.1, so if you get it right, it can put you up there in amongst it on the leaderboard. Liam doing a good job here. The takeoff is technically very, very good. Great distance from the diving board. He just stays in his tuck position, marginally too...
Yeah, that's okay. Good opening. 60.45. Remember, only 2 get dropped for the final for tonight, so there's your steady support crew for this man from Leeds, even those who are reporting for the Jamaica team. Yona Knight Wisdom of Jamaica going with his forward 2.5 somersaults. We've seen it before. Here it comes again.
Well done, Yona. I met Yona many, many years ago, and he was taller than I was then, only when he was kid, so this makes diving incredibly difficult. I often joke with Yona, he should be playing basketball with his height. So this makes diving very tricky. Look at that, in the pike shape, so he's bending at the hips, keeping the knees straight, toes pointed. But he does some impressive dives, and his list, that's his easiest dive, so watch out. How can you miss him with those trunks on?
You can't. Former gymnast, big hero is Usain Bolt. Big cheer for Jack Law. Second Commonwealth Games for him. His first big international event was in Delhi 4 years ago. And they're starting off with a back 2.5 somersaults with tuck worth 3.0. And 8 will put Jack into the lead in round 1.
Nice work, Jack. Yeah, so he is coming out and laying down his intention, and that is, I'm going to start with back 2.5 in the tuck position. This is tricky. Most of the other divers will find this a bit of a squeeze. Jack making easy work of that. Wow.
Yeah, it's definitely a Commonwealth Games for English 19-year-olds, isn't it? We saw it in the pool, and we're seeing it now on the diving board with Jack Law. Nice, solid opening for Jack. 66 points, puts him in 3rd place for time being. Of course, no medals to be awarded this morning, just qualification. Yep, here comes the Beijing 10-meter platform individual champion, Matt Mitchell, with a back 2.5 somersaults with tuck.
Oh, interesting. Same dive as Jack, and performed equally as well. I forget how good Mitchum is on springboard because I don't get to see him compete very often. He is just such an elegant diver. Look at this elevation from the board, beautiful tuck shape, superb entry, gliding himself into the water. That's going to be there or thereabouts with Jack. Maybe not quite as good, in my opinion, as Mr. Laws, and we'll see what the judges think. And of course, they agree with me. Look at that, Bob.
They always agree with you there. Not always to the extent you want them to, but 7.5 and 2 sevens will give him 64.50. Now, the second of the Malaysians, Utsit Liang, is going for a dive you're familiar with by now, seen it quite a few times. Forward 2.5 somersaults worth 2.6.
Oh, look at that. He went flying, didn't he? My goodness. Really attacking that dive, probably giving it a little bit too much. Just over-rotating as he goes into the water. Boom! Look at the height he generates from that 1 meter springboard. Just going, whoa, whoa, whoa! Just almost swinging his arms, trying to stop himself going over.
There wasn't it? 2 6.5s and a 7 to put in his score. Francois Imbu Dulac of Canada. 2 Canadians going back-to-back here. 12th of the 14. And he'll start up in the 3s. 3.1 for the Canadian. Relates to an inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck.
Yeah, skipped off the diving board a little bit there. Normally on the inwards you need to make sure your shoulders are pressing right over the diving board. You see Francois here just almost skipping out the trapdoor, which won't help him for the height that he needs. But he does do a very neat and tidy job. Look here, just shifting his hips back, skipping from the diving board, which means he's running out of room, but he does sneak it in. So I don't know, what are the judges going to give him there? They might give him 7s. And he almost like straddled his legs out. Of course, the judges don't get the angle that we're viewing there. They're side on. Well, there you go.
Well,
sneaky.
Well, from our perspective and our vantage point, I looked a bit generous 7s, to be honest, but there you go. The judges don't see it quite like we do. Cody Yano, second of the Canadians, and he'll open up with a 3.4. Big tariff for him to start off with. Inward 2.5 somersaults with pike for Cody Yano.
Oh, what an absolute shame. That is an incredibly difficult dive. So an inward 2.5 in the piked position from the 1 meter was unfathomable a few years ago. And look at Cody here. That takeoff is bang on the money. He just gets a little bit excited, I think. He comes out of the dive a little bit early, ending up short of vertical. So he's going to get caned by the judges on that. Maybe only 5.5s, which is a shame. Because if he'd have waited a little bit longer, he'd have been bang on the money there.
High risk to go for your biggest tariff dive straight off.
Yeah, that's chunky, isn't it?
56 for him, 56.10 to be absolutely precise. Now the South African-born Australian to round off round 1. Grant Nell will go for something a little bit downsized from what we've seen. Forward 3.5 somersaults with tuck, still worth a quite chunky 3.0. Yeah,
he's an experienced diver. Yeah, it's an interesting dive to open up with. 4-3.5, 3.0 can be quite a challenge. So opting for the tuck position here, bending at the knees and at the hips. Just a little bit of a split in the tuck position there with the knees to apart, so the judges will penalise for that. Strong opening, final diver of round 1. And this contest is actually a little warmer than I was expecting to be. I watched training this morning, and some of the boys were all over the shot, but they're holding it together so far.
It's certainly very warm in this pool, I can assure you. I know you haven't got warm vision, but we can assure you it is. 54.6 was James Heatley's opening, so let's see where that places him in terms of the rankings at the end of round 1. 5 more rounds to come in the men's 1 meter springboard preliminaries. Nice shot of the water, but no marks, I'm afraid. So I'll tell you that Ahmed Asman leading after round 1. Chris Mears and Jack Law in positions 2 and 3. And we have joint 12th at the moment, so James Heatley and the Indian diver are locked in 12th place. 12 go through to the final tonight. Just dropped 2. At the moment, one of those will be Utsi Liang. So it's early stages yet. And now James Heatley's going to back up his opening 2.6 with another one. Low tariff to start off with, so they have to be good, because everybody else is up in the 3s. His second dive will be a reverse, 1.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists in 12th at the moment.
Or maybe the excitement just getting to James there. This is a very simple dive in comparison to what we're seeing from the other athletes in this competition. Here we are, reverse, moving backwards towards the diving board, 1.5 twists. Just overcooked it a little bit there, and over he goes. The splash moving back towards the diving board. Everything looks good so far, just gives it a little bit too much. Plenty of adrenaline, as we've mentioned before. Just wasn't able to be precise and control. That's what diving's all about, it's precision. Slightly off there from James.
James trains in this pool, so knows that board very well. Will have used it many, many times, not using it to great effect this time though. 3 6s and struggling a little bit, but there's still 4 more rounds after this. Here comes our first round leader, Ahmed Asman of Malaysia, with a forward 3.5 somersaults.
Wow, not just a forward 3.5 somersaults, but a forward 3.5 somersaults in the piked position. 3.3 degree of difficulty. I personally think it should be worth more, especially when you're not even on the end of the diving board. And he hasn't even got in a tight pike shape. Wow, he made difficult work of that. And as you can see, and this will often be the case, running out of room to complete the dive. 1 meter springboard, you've got to be on the money on the end of the diving board, especially with a dive of that complexity. He was leader in the first round. He will definitely not be the leader of this round.
No, not with marks like that, I'm afraid. That's mid-range. 5.5s and 5s. So not quite what he was hoping for. 51.15. Riley McCormick in the 3s. Going for 3.0. Currently in 8th place, the first of the 3 Canadians. And Riley will go with a back 2.5 somersaults with tuck.
Oh, Riley just letting the dive get away from him there. You can see when he swim to the side, he wasn't too enamoured by that second round dive. He did all the hard work, takeoff is good, squeezes into the tuck shape. He just falls asleep in his tuck shape, I think, there, and over he goes. That could be the first surfboard moment of these Commonwealth Games. There we are, over he goes, water coming towards us, almost a mini tidal wave. Wow.
Won't be happy with that, and that'll be something you'll need to get right, provided he makes it through to the final tonight. We expect him to. 36, though, won't help his cause a great deal. Now, Chris Mears. Good, solid start with a 68. Going to move on to a 3.0. Actually, a 3.1 to start off with is a 3.0 reverse. 2.5 somersaults for Chris.
Yes, nice work from Chris. Very easy to let the adrenaline or the occasion get to you. Chris very composed here. Beautiful timing. Up he goes, reverse 2.5, spinning backwards towards the diving board. Safe distance from it, reaches back and just slips into the water there. It has been better, it will be better, but that'll get 7.5s and that'll top the leaderboard so far in this second round.
Let's have a look at what the judges reckon to that. Are they happy with it? Yeah, they're relatively happy with it. 67.50, 37.5. I get the impression, Leon, they mark down in the morning and start to get the real marker pens working in the evening. It's not, I know they're not marker pens, they're little buttons they push, but the equivalent of. comes our Indian diver, Ramananda Kombrelapak, with his forward 3.5.
Oh, there you go, Ramananda. He really needs to get after that one. We saw Azman from Malaysia in round 2 attempt this dive and not really get it going on. Ramananda here really giving it some beans on the takeoff, and boy did he need to. Look at that, sneaks it in nicely. That could get nearly 70 points. That's an impressive dive. Wow.
Well, the legacy of 2012, maybe, 2010 in Delhi might well be showing here. 3 7s for the Indian, and that will take him into second place for the time being behind Chris Mears, but we saw the Indian divers in 2010 enjoying themselves in Delhi, and it looks like certainly he has carried on from where he left off last time. Now, Freddie Woodward for England.
Oh, nice work. That was a big dive for Freddie. I was watching this in training. He was having a little bit of trouble with it, just finding his entry into the water. But when it counts here in the prelims, it needed to be good, and he's got it bang on the money. Finishing a little bit low to the water, which isn't unusual because, well, to state the obvious, we're pretty low to the water on the 1 metre anyway. However, he sneaks that in just nicely. 7's coming his way. Yep.
Yeah, nice and solid. Save your best for tonight, as long as you make it through. And he's well on his way to doing that with 63 marks and comfortably lodging himself into 4th place in round 2 right now. Liam Stone, the New Zealand diver, again for a low tariff, goes from his 3.1 to a 2.6 at forward 2.5 somersaults with pike.
Yeah, interesting game of tactics, going for his simplest dive, round 2. Good job, he went for it. Actually, his hurdle step here leaves him way back from the end of the diving board, a good 10 centimetres back. So I think he'll be fortunate that it wasn't one of his more complicated dives, so he's able to complete it with a good amount of execution. 7.5 is probably from these judges, even though he's back from the end of the diving board. It is much more difficult to get the height and elevation you need.
7.5 is very low tariff dive though, so only picking up 58.50 marks. The big man from Jamaica, from Leeds. Here comes Yona Knight Wisdom, who's going to try a reverse 1.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists.
Yeah, very nice. One of Yona's more comfortable dives, so he knew that he needed to keep calm, keep focused, and make it count. No point in going after it too hard and making mistakes, as we've seen some of the other athletes. Using that height to his advantage, reaching up, almost touching the ceiling. 1.5 twists, 1.5 somersaults. It's easy, and when it's done like that, it looks very, very good.
Just actually dwarfs that board, doesn't he, at 1 metre?
Puts it in the water when he gets on the end. It's incredible, isn't it? Super strength.
58.50 equals and matches what he did in the opening round. And looks like he's okay right now, which is good to see. Jack Law, we've seen him as a world junior champion on the 1 metre board just a few years ago. Here is at senior level with a reverse 1.5 somersaults, 2.5 twists.
There we go, that's more like the dives that we'll be expecting to see from some of the stronger athletes. Reverse 1.5 somersaults, 2.5 twists, 3.0. Maybe it's Jack right on the end, reaches up with the arms, 2.5 twists, re-pike, so the 1.5 somersaults. Beautiful dive, 8s from the judges if they're awake. Maybe they're awake now that it's round 2, 3. I'm not awake yet, obviously. I don't even know what round it's on. Well done, Jack.
Where are we?
Dive.
Glasgow, Edinburgh? Who knows?
Somewhere.
8.0.
Nice, 72.
That'll do. That'll do very nicely, actually. 72s and 8s. And takes Jack into a lead. Just a couple of marks ahead of his synchro partner on the 3 metre, Chris Mears. Now, Matt Mitchum, reverse 2.5 somersaults with 3.2 degree of difficulty.
Oh, well done, Matt Mitchum. You can see why he's Delhi silver medalist. Force to be reckoned with. He looks, I spoke to him the other day after training and I asked him if he was injured and he said no, and that makes a huge difference. He's a grand old age of 26 now. I know what that's like when you get to that age and you're still trying to dive, and if he's injury free, he knows where he is, he knows his dives, and this morning he is right on the heels of Jack and Chris.
Euthanasia sounds like a great option now, doesn't it? 67.20. Matt Mitchell. Goodness me. Writing people off in their mid-20s. Utsi Liang for Malaysia. Needs something to get going here because he was at the bottom of the pile after round one. Here's a reverse 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Whoops.
Oh, you called that quite early, Bob. I don't know. You're the diving expert now. What did you think?
Anybody goes sideways up a board always worries me like that.
Yeah, he was right. Yeah, he was facing skew-if, wasn't he, for want of a better expression. And he did actually do okay with that. I thought he was going to go way over a vertical. He's a little shaky this morning, see. Normally, we see him a little bit more consistent. But, yeah, moving sideways, a little bit cast, as we'd say, from a technical description. Well, he's got some work to do, but still 4 rounds to go. Sevens is okay.
Yeah, sevens will help his cause. Moves him up a peg or two. Francois Imbu-Dulac of Canada, 12th place after the, sorry, 4th place after the first round. Forward 3.5 somersaults with tuck, 3.0 degree of difficulty on round 2. Oops, that's not a failed dive.
No, that's a restart. So what will happen now is Francois will compose himself and go again. The judges will mark out of 10, but there will be a 2-point deduction from each judge.
So the best he can hope for is probably a 6 here.
Oh, that's a failed dive.
He's off. Yeah,
he's had a nightmare. 2 approaches. Wow, in a row. Maybe I'll do a little bit of digging and find out whether that's a bit of a bogey dive for him. I'm not sure, but his hurdle steps were atrocious each time. Look, nothing you could do from there. You wouldn't even be able to do one of the simplest dives. That is a failed dive. Our first. It's only round 2. Hopefully we won't see too many more failed dives.
Well, obviously he does put him right at the bottom. It's a recoverable, if I could say the word, position for him. He can get back into the mix. But he's going to have to pretty much nail everything from here on in, or else he'll be saying goodbye at this stage and will not progress to the last 12. On to another Canadian. We wish him well and better than we've just seen performed by his teammate. Here's Cody Yanos back, 2.5 somersaults with tuck. It's 3.0 degree of difficulty on this.
Well, the cameraman wasn't expecting that then. Cody went out the top of the shot. That is some super strength in those legs. Look at this elevation. Boom, up he goes, squeezing into that tuck shape. He's a big guy, and so he needs to use that strength and power to get as much height as he can, and he certainly does that. He's got a big list of dives, and that is bang on the money. Slightly back on his opening dive, that didn't quite work for him. That's better.
Finishes with a 3.2. That one is a 3 and gives him a total mark of 58.5. Now to Grant Nell of Australia. Opened up with a 60 dead on his forward 3.5. Onto a back 2.5 somersaults with tuck for Grant Nell. Last of the competitors in round 2 of the men's 1 meter springboard.
Oh, you can see how difficult this dive is. When Jack performed this earlier in the round, I said what easy work he made of it. Grant there giving us an insight into how tricky this dive is. You don't have the hurdle step because you're standing backwards. He hasn't got a lot of just about getting that dive in time. 5.5s coming his way, which is quite reflective of how difficult this dive is. So, yeah, just shows you some of the divers have got this down, and others like Grant are finding it very tough, which is exactly how they should be finding it. That's a big dive on the 1 meter.
So first diving competition of the 2014 Commonwealth Games. Glasgow 2014, but this is taking place in Edinburgh. Jack Law, Chris Mears. We'd like to see that later on today. That's how it looks after round 2 in the prelims. Matt Mitchell in 3rd. Freddie Woodward doing well too in 6th place. We'll wait to see where James Heatley is. So hopefully the Scotsman's moved up a place. Well, he's in 12th. That'll be good enough if he stays there. 2 Canadians at the bottom. Riley needs to get going, and Francois Imbu-Dulac already 30 points adrift. So James Heatley, what can you do? This is the first of his bigger dive. Moves up from 2.6 to 3, finishes with 3.1. So work his way up to his bigger dive at the tail end of the program. But this will be a back 2.5 somersaults with tuck, 3.0 degree of difficulty, and as you saw on that previous caption, 12th at the moment, which will be good enough to see him through to the final tonight.
Well, that's his biggest dive. We just saw Grant finish off his final round there from Australia with that dive, and James isn't too far away from Grant. Here we go, really using the diving board as much as he can. You need to squeeze every last drop of height out of that diving board, just running out of room a little bit there. Just needed an extra 10 centimetres of height to make that entry into the water a little bit smoother, to get a few more marks from the judges. What, 5.5s? Yeah,
well,
6 is good.
A little bit more generous. Maybe a little home bias there. 6.0s and a 5.5 for James. Here's a man who's doing the individual 1 and also doing the 3 and the synchro 3 as well. Ahmed Azman started off very, very well, leading after the first round. 5th now. And this will be his 3rd round dive, which is a inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck, and moving up to 3.1 in round 3.
Oh, Azman's just a pocket rocket. He's got so much power but no control. Yeah, shaking his head as he swims to the side. Look, does all the hard work. Here we are, arms above his head, hips driving over, spinning very, very effortlessly, and then landing flat on his back nearly. Almost doing a forward roll into the water. What an absolute shame. If this young man gets it right, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. At the moment, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge.
Yeah, a lot of hotch and a lot of potch, and not much else for Ahmed Azman at this stage. After a very promising start, actually going backwards in terms of marks. Start off with a 17, that's a 49.6 for him. Now come on, Riley, time to get going, boy. This is his reverse 2.5 somersault.
A little short as he enters into the water there from Riley. More of a dive though, 2nd round dive. Left him at the bottom of the pack almost, apart from his teammate who actually failed a dive. So you're right, Riley had some work to do. This is better. This will probably get 6.5 from the judges. Just leaving it marginally short of vertical as he goes in, still pulling the dive in, trying to complete it or give the impression that he's completing it efficiently. Riley tends to be a bit sleepy in the mornings. He's a good friend of mine, so I'm sure he'll wake up by this evening if he makes it through. So come on, Riley, see what you can do.
I think he's working on American time, where he's based these days. 6s and a 6.5 for Riley. If he's working on Vancouver time, he's 8 hours behind, so I think it's 2:35 in the morning. Chris Mears looking good, looking very strong after round 2. Here comes his 3rd round dive, which will be a reverse 1.5 somersaults, 2.5 twists, worth 3 points exactly.
Yes, nice work from Chris. I was watching this in training. He was fiddling with it the other day. It wasn't quite working for him. Having to combine 1 metre and 3 metre means slightly different techniques, technical aspects involved. This dive in particular is a different one. They've 1 metre working on the 2.5 twists. Anyway, he waits with his arms there, squares it up, just moving. The judges won't see that angle.
Swims, dives even, 68.20, 67.50 and 67.5. So 3 back-to-back, fairly impressive dives. Certainly nice and solid, and will progress him to the final. Probably nothing untoward happens in the final 3 rounds. Now, from India, 17 years of age, Ramalanda Kong, Brenda Pan will go with the back 2.5 somersault.
Whoa, the surf is definitely up. There we go. That's our 2nd surfboard moment of these games. Wow, these are pocket rocket. Ramananda is cranking his dives at the start. Look at this. Boom, up he goes into the tuck shape, squeezing in, but just comes out a fortnight too late, having to bend his knees as he comes into the water there. And yeah, the tidal wave is set off towards us. Here it comes. Surfboard time.
Yeah, not so much an hour's delay, more like a few days delay there for the Indian. 3.0s, 3.5. Not going to help his cause a great deal, but might be lucky that Imbu Dulak, having dropped a dive, has a lot of ground to make up. Freddie Woodward, nice solid start for him. Sticking with the 3.0s, that's where he was in round 2, so he's in round 3, where they back 2.5 somersaults with tuck.
Oh, well done, Freddie. Manages to, well, I think he came out the dive a little bit early there, but he noticed that and then uses his chest and shoulders to pull the dive round. It's a big dive, back 2.5 in the tuck position, good takeoff, squeezing into the tuck shape, just leaving the dive slightly short, but then pulls his legs around. Will he convince the judges to give him 7s? I think he might well do. He'll be pleased with that dive. Great third round dive there from the Sheffield diver, Freddie Woodward.
Couple of 7s and a 6.5. That'll do very nicely for Freddie. Save the best till tonight, but do what you have to do in the morning. So what exactly he is doing. 4 3.5 somersaults with tuck for New Zealand's Liam Stone.
Oh, just back from the end of the diving board. You can see as he surfaced there, he knew that it wasn't quite executed as well as it would need to be. There we are, exactly the same takeoff as he had on his previous dive, but this time he had an extra somersault to do. So I wasn't sure where he was as he finishes the dive, so almost pauses as he exits into the entry position. See here, like, oh, there we are. Here I am on the end. The judges will penalise him heavily for that. A bit scruffy.
Yeah, just the 45. 3 5s. Makes the permutations and the calculations very easy to work out. Now on to the 19-year-old from Leeds, representing Jamaica. Former gymnast, discovered by the City of Leeds club in 2004 at his school. Here comes Yona Knight Wisdom with an inward 2.5 somersaults with tuck. It's a big one for him, 3.1.
Oh, just losing it on the takeoff there a little bit, Yona. He actually does a good job entering the water, but he lost it all on the takeoff. Let me show you. As he swings the arms there, just dipping his heels a little bit, hips go back, he moves too far away from the diving board, and with the legs that long, he needs to be a little bit closer in order to sneak it in time. Wow, what a shame there. Just needed to stay a bit braver, a little bit more balanced, and he'll be in there, but he's still in the mix.
Those hips don't lie, do they? 49.6 for Iona. Now Jack. Reverse 2.5 somersaults with pike. Again, playing with the big boys here. 3.2 degree of difficulty for our current leader.
Oh, that is the dive of the meet. This is chunky. There is nowhere to go on this. If you do not get the takeoff right, you are toast. Anyway, Jack is fully buttered with lots of honey on it. That is bang on. Look at that dive. He's going to get 8s, 8.5s. The judges will give that 9s in the final, but as it's the prelims, is that going to get 80 points? That's huge. What a dive.
I really wasn't quite sure where you were going with that.
No, me neither.
80.00 for Jack. Biggest dive we've seen in terms of marks so far. Massive dive and a massive progression, and gives him 15-point advantage over his synchro teammate, Chris Mears. Now to Matt Mitchum. Haven't seen yet the best of him, but he's saving something, I'm sure, for later. 3.1 this time round for the 10-meter champion from 2008 Beijing, inward 2.5.
Oh, see, that's the talent that this young man has. I know I called him old last round, but I was only talking in diving terms. 26, and his wealth of experience just moves the diver too far away from the diving board here, which would cause lots of other divers a lot of hassle, but Mitchum somehow manages to squeeze and twist and turn and adjust accordingly, and he'll probably get 7.5s, maybe even an 8 from the judges there. Let's wait. Yeah, he does.
We'll get a smile for you, Matty. Yes, we are, and a wave. 69.75. Now, currently in 9th. He was at the bottom of the pile after round 1, but he's moved up a notch or 2. Wutsit Liang on Malaysia. And he'll carry on his program. Reach halfway with a back 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Currently in 9th, the second of the Malaysians.
Wow, he's fully awake and he's firing on all cylinders, and he just needs to find that precision and control. Swinging the arms, beautiful board timing. He's got his boots on there, but let's not worry about that because he just over-rotates again. You see the splash moving away from the diving board. The judges will penalise you. You won't get more than a 5 for that, which is a crying shame because that takeoff has got 9s written all over it. But you need to complete the dive. Yep, 5s across the board.
And provided he comes back tonight, something to work on there, as indeed there is in all these dives, but at the moment he's in the mix. This man, however, will try and put behind him the nightmare of round number 2, where he didn't have a dive at all. Tried first time, Had to abort it. Second time, couldn't complete it. So got a round to make up in effect now. Back 2.5 somersaults with tuck for Francois Imbu-Dulac.
Yeah, that's an okay dive. I mean, how are you going to feel? Round 2, you fall off the diving board in the Commonwealth Games. That is going to be a test of your mental strength to even continue in the competition. This is a tough dive. He hasn't got a lot of room here. Takeoff is weak. Tuck shape is open. He's squeezing the top of his knees, so he lands pretty short, but does pull in. So he's back in the competition. He will have a lot of work to do to try and make that top 12 cut.
Yeah, 6s and a 5.5 still leaves him 33 points behind Riley McCormick, who is one above him in the standings right now. Cody Yano of Canada, the Canadian, coming up with a forward 2.5 somersaults.
Yeah, that's Cody's easiest dive. He opened up with a huge dive, 3.4 degree of difficulty. This is only 2.6. Very simple. He's a bit back from the end, which means throw him off as he enters into the water. He'll get 7.5s on that. This is a straight up and down dive. It is only 2.6, so he won't be making any big climbs up the leaderboard, but I don't think he'll be falling down it. Middle of the pack, I would say, after this round for Cody.
Yeah, that's fine. 3 7s, 54.6, keeps him very much in the middle of the pack. And of course the marks are not carried forward to the final tonight. They start all over again in the final. So if you've had a great prelims, it doesn't actually count for much as long as you're through. And the final diver of round 3 is the Australian Grant Nell, reverse 2.5 somersaults with tuck. Currently in the 11th position, so not much margin for error either for him right now.
Oh, that was almost the commentator's curse there for my co-commentator, Bob Ballard. Wow, so Grant lands right on the corner of the diving board. Wow, he did particularly well not to end up diving closer to the pool side, which is where the cameraman is now. Look at this, you'll see from this angle, right on the corner. Wow, just, he does an amazing job there. I give him an 8 just for managing not to fall off the side of the board.
Yeah, it's not advisable to dive like that, quite frankly. There's only calamity to befall you normally if that's the case, but 6.5s just managed to salvage something. As he salvaged his progression. Well, there you go. As it was, Jack Law, Chris Mears 1 and 2, Matt Mitchum and Freddie Woodward's moved up to 4th. So 3 Englishmen in the top 4 now, and looking good with 3 rounds to go. But as we've seen a drop dive already, I don't want to put the mouth on anybody just yet. Yona Knight Wisdom right in the middle of the pack. Good for him. And the 2 Canadians at the bottom of the pile. And, Riley, obviously, with all the experience he's gone, Francois, after that drop dive, in a little bit of trouble, got a lot of ground to make up.